What if I told you that a rusty cargo hauler held together with spare parts and prayer once made the fastest fleet in galactic history look like they were standing still, and changed the balance of power across 3 star systems in the process? The Valdris Dominion had ruled the Perseus Arm for over 2 millennia, and their supremacy was built on one undeniable fact: nobody moved faster through space than they did. From the crystal spires of Nexus Throne, their capital world that floated in a sea of perpetual auroras, the Dominion's fleet command orchestrated the movement of 10,000 vessels across 100 star systems. The Valdris themselves were a sight to behold: tall, elegant beings with skin that shimmered like liquid mercury and eyes that held the cold intelligence of a species that had never known defeat. They moved with the fluid grace of creatures born to rule, and their technology reflected that superiority. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The crown jewel of their civilization was the Imperial Transit Network, a web of quantum tunnels that could move entire fleets across vast distances in mere hours. While other species still relied on conventional hyperspace drives that took days or weeks to cross between systems, Valdris ships could appear anywhere in their territory almost instantaneously. Their fastest vessels, the Phantom-class interceptors, could traverse the entire Perseus Arm in less than 3 days, a journey that would take conventional ships 3 months. Admiral Kairos Valdek stood on the observation deck of the Dominance, the Dominion's flagship, watching the daily fleet exercises with satisfied pride. The massive dreadnought was surrounded by a constellation of escort vessels, each one a masterpiece of engineering that represented centuries of technological advancement. The ships moved in perfect synchronization, their sleek hulls gleaming like predatory fish as they executed complex maneuvers through the quantum tunnel network. "Status report," Kairos commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "All systems operating at peak efficiency, Admiral," reported his aide, Commander Zara Nethys. "The new Phoenix-class cruisers have exceeded their performance parameters. Transit time from Nexus Throne to the Outer Rim has been reduced to 47 hours. Kairos nodded approvingly. The Dominion's speed advantage wasn't just about technology, it was about control. When you could move your forces faster than anyone else could even think, you didn't need to negotiate. You simply appeared, demonstrated your superiority, and watched lesser civilizations bow before the inevitable. This absolute confidence in their technological supremacy was why the Dominion had barely bothered to notice Earth when human ships first appeared in their territory. 6 months ago, the primitive vessels moved through space like wounded animals, taking weeks to traverse distances that Valdris ships covered in hours. Their technology was laughably outdated. Their ships appeared to be held together with salvaged parts, and their fastest vessels couldn't outrun a Dominion cargo hauler. "Sir," Commander Nethys said, consulting her data tablet, "we've received another communication request from the human delegation. They're asking for an audience to discuss mutual cooperation and trade opportunities." Kairos didn't even glance up from the tactical display. Standard response: "We don't negotiate with species that can't keep up." It wasn't cruelty, it was simple logic. The Dominion had learned long ago that there was no point in allying with civilizations that couldn't match their operational tempo. What good was a trading partner who took 3 months to deliver goods that you needed in? What value was there in military allies who would arrive at battles weeks after they were over? Earth had been classified as a developing civilization, the diplomatic term for species that were too primitive to be worth serious attention. Their ships were slow, their technology was crude, and their methods were inefficient. The Dominion's xenobiologists had filed reports describing humans as a curious species with potential, but lacking the fundamental understanding of physics necessary for true interstellar relevance. Captain Maya Chun, commander of the human freighter, the Drifter, had experienced this dismissal firsthand during her 3 attempts to establish contact with Dominion authorities. Each time, she'd been turned away by mid-level bureaucrats who could barely hide their amusement at her ship's antiquated design. The Drifter was indeed a sight to behold, but not in the way that inspired respect. The vessel was a patchwork of mismatched hull plates, visible repair welds, and jury-rigged systems that no rational engineer would trust. Her cargo bays were filled with goods from dozens of different worlds, all acquired through the kind of patient, methodical trading that the speed-obsessed Dominion found incomprehensible. Maya herself was a weathered woman in her 40s, with calloused hands and the quiet confidence that came from 30 years of keeping broken ships running in impossible conditions. Another rejection, she'd told her small crew after their latest attempt to meet with Dominion officials. They won't even let us into the inner system. Apparently, we're not equipped for modern interstellar commerce. Her first mate, a grizzled engineer named Torres Santos, had just shrugged. They're lost, Captain. We've been hauling cargo since before they figured out how to leave their home system. But Maya had noticed something during their brief encounters with Dominion patrol ships, something that the arrogant Valdris had missed entirely. For all their technological superiority and quantum tunnel networks, their ships moved with the rigid precision of machines following predetermined paths. They were fast, yes, but they were also predictable. As the Drifter made its slow way toward the outer territories, carrying a cargo hold full of rare minerals and cultural artifacts, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the Dominion's confidence in their speed advantage might not be as unshakable as they believed. After all, she thought as she watched a squadron of Phantom interceptors zip past her ship without even bothering to scan her cargo. Sometimes the fastest route between 2 points isn't a straight line. Maya Chun's opportunity for vindication came 3 weeks later, during the Dominion's annual fleet exhibition, a grand spectacle where the Empire demonstrated its technological superiority to representatives from dozens of allied and tributary species. The exhibition took place in the Kronos system, where massive viewing platforms had been constructed specifically for the event. Ships from across the galaxy hung in perfect formation around the central display area, their crews watching as the Dominion showcased why they remained the undisputed masters of space. Maya had managed to secure permission to attend only because the Drifter was technically classified as a cultural curiosity. The bureaucrat who approved her request had actually chuckled while stamping the authorization. I suppose it would be amusing to show the primitive humans what real starships look like, he'd said. The exhibition began with a demonstration of the Phantom-class interceptors. 5 sleek vessels, each one gleaming like polished obsidian, materialized simultaneously across the system through quantum tunnel jumps. They moved with impossible precision, executing maneuvers that defied conventional understanding of physics. The crowd watched in awe as the ships danced through space, appearing and disappearing through microtunnels, covering distances that should have taken hours in mere minutes. "Behold the pinnacle of Valdris engineering," Admiral Kairos announced over the broadcast channels. "Our Phantom interceptors can traverse any distance within Dominion space in less than 4 hours. No force in the galaxy can match their speed or precision." The demonstration continued with increasingly impressive displays. Dreadnoughts the size of cities moved through quantum tunnels as easily as fighters. Entire battle groups appeared and vanished at will, demonstrating tactical mobility that had kept the Dominion unchallenged for centuries. Then came the moment. Maya had been waiting for, the open challenge. "As is tradition," Admiral Kairos announced, "we invite any delegation to demonstrate their own fleet capabilities. Let all witness the technological gap that separates the Dominion from lesser civilizations." One by one, allied species stepped forward to show their best ships. The crystalline Nexari demonstrated vessels that could phase shift through matter. The insectoid Krex displayed swarm tactics with thousands of coordinated fighters. The gaseous Etherians showed ships that could compress themselves to near-light speed. Each demonstration was met with polite applause, but it was clear that none could match the Dominion's quantum tunnel technology. The visiting ships were impressive by conventional standards, but they still moved through normal space like everyone else. Finally, Maya activated her communications array. "This is Captain Maya Chun of the Earth Vessel Drifter, requesting permission to participate in the demonstration." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, laughter began to ripple through the communications channels. It started as scattered chuckles from individual ships, but quickly grew into a galaxy-wide chorus of amusement. Admiral Kiros's voice cut through the noise, dripping with condescension. "Captain Chen, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, this exhibition is for species with actual fleet capabilities. Your vessel is barely capable of conventional interstellar travel." "With respect, Admiral," Maya replied calmly, "I believe my ship can demonstrate something your fleet might find interesting." The laughter grew louder. Commander Nephis leaned toward the Admiral. "Sir, perhaps we should allow it. The contrast would be educational for the other species." Kairos nodded slowly. "Very well, Captain Chun. You may demonstrate Earth's fleet capabilities. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly." Maya's crew, all 5 of them, gathered on the Drifter's cramped bridge. Torres looked nervous. "Captain, are you sure about this? That's the most advanced fleet in the galaxy out there. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." "That's exactly why I'm sure," Maya replied, her hands moving over controls that looked ancient compared to the sleek interfaces of Dominion. "Ships. Rico, prep the cargo bay modifications. Elena, I need you to monitor our heat signatures. Marcus, start calculating alternative routes through the system." Her crew exchanged glances. They'd been with Maya long enough to trust her instincts. But this felt like professional suicide. The Drifter began its demonstration run, a simple course from the outer system to the inner planets and back. The challenge was supposed to showcase speed and maneuverability, qualities that every observer knew the human ship lacked. As Maya's ship began its slow burn toward the first waypoint, the commentary from other vessels was merciless. "Look at that engine signature," laughed a Nexari captain. "My cargo pods move faster than that." "Are they even using modern propulsion?" asked a Krex squadron leader. "It looks like they're burning chemical fuel." Admiral Kairos watched the human ship's progress with growing amusement. "Captain Chen, at your current speed, your demonstration will take approximately 14 hours to complete. Perhaps you'd like to reconsider." Maya's voice remained steady. "No thank you, Admiral. We'll stick to our flight plan." The ridicule continued for hours as the Drifter made its painfully slow way through the course. Dominion officers made jokes about watching paint dry. Other species began placing bets on whether the human ship would break down before completing the route. But Maya noticed something that no one else was paying attention to. While every eye was focused on her ship's embarrassing performance, the Dominion's own vessels were unconsciously revealing their operational patterns. The patrol ships that monitored the exhibition space, the escorts that maintained security perimeters, the logistics vessels that supplied the massive fleet, they all moved according to rigid protocols. More importantly, they all depended entirely on their quantum tunnel network. Not once during the entire exhibition had she seen a Dominion ship change course using conventional propulsion. They jumped from point to point through tunnels, but between jumps, they were essentially helpless. As the Drifter finally completed its humiliating circuit, Admiral Kairos's voice filled the communications channels one last time. "Thank you, Captain Chun, for that enlightening demonstration of human capabilities. Perhaps now Earth will understand why we classify your species as developing." The laughter that followed echoed across the system. Maya's ship was dismissed, forgotten, relegated to irrelevance by beings who considered themselves the masters of space. But as the drifter began its slow journey back to human space, Maya was already planning for the day when the Dominion would learn that speed without adaptability was just expensive helplessness. The crisis began 6 weeks after the fleet exhibition. In a region of space that should have been perfectly safe, the heart of Dominion territory, Maya was hauling a cargo of rare epsilon crystals through the outer territories when the first emergency broadcasts reached her ship. The drifter's ancient communications array crackled to life with Admiral Kairos's voice, but instead of his usual commanding tone, there was something that sounded dangerously close to panic. All vessels, all stations, this is Nexus Throne Fleet. Command, we have a Code Omega situation developing in the core systems. The maelstrom has expanded beyond all predicted parameters. Maya frowned and activated her long-range sensors. The readings that came back made her blood run cold. The Tartarus maelstrom, a massive gravitational anomaly that had been safely contained at the edge of Dominion space for over a century, was growing. And it was growing fast. "Captain," Torres called from the engineering station, his voice tight with concern. "I'm reading massive spatial distortions across 17 star systems. The gravity waves are off the charts." The maelstrom wasn't just expanding, it was actively consuming space itself, creating a region where the fundamental laws of physics became unpredictable. Worse yet, it was moving directly toward the Dominion's most populated systems, including Nexus Throne itself. Maya activated the emergency frequency and listened as reports flooded in. From across the Perseus Arm, the situation was worse than anyone had initially realized. The maelstrom's expansion was creating cascading subspace disruptions that were spreading like cracks in glass, threatening to fragment the entire quantum tunnel network. "All quantum tunnel operations are suspended immediately," Admiral Kairos announced, his voice now openly strained. "Repeat, the tunnel network is offline indefinitely. All vessels must revert to conventional propulsion systems." The magnitude of the disaster became clear over the next few hours. The Dominion had built their entire civilization around the quantum tunnel network. Their ships were designed to jump from point to point, not to travel through normal space. Their logistics, their military tactics, their entire way of life depended on being able to appear anywhere instantly. Now, with the network offline, they were reduced to moving through space like everyone else, except they'd forgotten how. Emergency broadcasts painted a picture of growing chaos. Dominion ships, built for speed and elegance, were struggling with basic navigation in normal space. Their sleek hulls had minimal fuel capacity because they'd never needed to travel long distances conventionally. Their crews had no experience with the kind of patient, methodical space travel that other species took for granted. Worse, the approaching maelstrom threatened to engulf 3 heavily populated systems within the next 72 hours. Millions of Valdris civilians needed to be evacuated, but the Dominion fleet, the fastest in the galaxy just days ago, was now moving like wounded animals. Fleet-wide status report. Admiral Kairos demanded during an emergency command briefing that Maya was monitoring on public channels. The responses were uniformly grim. "Captain Nexer of the Dominance. Sir, at conventional speeds, we can reach the Proxima colonies in 43 hours. The maelstrom will arrive in 38. Commander Theses of the Phoenix Squadron. Admiral, my ships are burning through fuel reserves faster than projected. We may not have enough to complete evacuation operations and return to safe distance. Captain Vorak of the Logistics Corps. Sir, our cargo vessels lack the range for deep space evacuation routes. We'll need supply stations every 6 hours, but half our stations are in the maelstrom's projected path." One by one, the reports came in. The Dominion's mighty fleet, designed for quantum tunnel superiority, was failing at the basic task of moving through space efficiently. Their ships were too specialized, their crews too dependent on technology, That was no longer available. Maya listened to the growing desperation in their voices and made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone who knew her reputation. For caution, she activated her transmitter on the emergency frequency. Nexus Throne Fleet Command, this is Captain Maya Shun of the Earth Vessel Drifter. I'm monitoring your situation and have a proposal. The response was immediate and predictably dismissive. Captain Chun, Admiral Kairos replied, his voice sharp with frustration. This is not the time for human curiosity. We have a real crisis here. With respect, Admiral, that's exactly why I'm calling. My ship is currently 47 hours from the Proxima colonies. I can be there in 35 hours. Silence. Then, Captain, that's impossible. Your ship demonstrated its speed capabilities at the exhibition. You couldn't outrun a cargo drone. Maya smiled grimly. Admiral, with respect, your exhibition course was designed to showcase speed in optimal conditions. Space isn't always optimal. Commander. Nethys cut in, Captain Chun. Even if your estimate is accurate, which it can't be, your ship can carry perhaps 50 evacuees. We need to move millions. Not millions, Commander. Just the critical personnel and essential supplies. The people who can't wait for your main fleet to arrive. Maya paused, letting that sink in. And I'm not talking about just my ship. Explain, Kairos said tersely. Admiral, there are 47 human ships currently operating in Dominion space. Freighters, traders, survey vessels, all of them running on conventional propulsion, all of them experienced with long-range space travel. We know how to navigate without quantum tunnels, because we've never had quantum tunnels. The silence stretched for long seconds. Finally, Kairos spoke. Captain, even if we were to consider this unprecedented cooperation, human ships simply lack the speed for effective evacuation operations. Maya's voice remained calm. Admiral, may I suggest a simple test? Give me the coordinates of your most critical evacuation target, somewhere your fastest available ships can't reach in time. Let me show you what human vessels can do when the situation calls for it. Another pause. Then Commander Nethys spoke. Up, sir, the research station at Kepler 7. It houses our most critical data archives and 3,000 researchers. Our nearest vessel won't reach them for 51 hours, but the maelstrom will hit in 46. That's impossible to reach in time, Admiral Kairos said flatly. For your ships, maybe, Maya replied. But Admiral, your ships were built to be fast in perfect conditions. Mine was built to get places no matter what. The challenge was set. The Dominion, masters of the galaxy, were about to learn what humans had known for centuries. Sometimes the best way to move fast wasn't to build the fastest ship, but to build the ship that never had to slow down. As Maya began plotting her course to Kepler 7, she couldn't help but think that the maelstrom, for all its destructive power, was about to give humanity its first real chance to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The Dominion's evacuation efforts began to unravel within the first 12 hours. Admiral Kairos stood on the bridge of the Dominance, watching his tactical displays with growing horror as report after report painted a picture of systematic failure. The fleet that had dominated the galaxy for 2 millennia was falling apart like a machine with all its critical components removed. Status report from Phoenix Squadron, Commander Nethys announced, her voice barely concealing her dismay. Captain. Thesis's voice crackled through the cum. Admiral, we've had to reduce speed by 30%. Our fuel consumption models were based on quantum tunnel operations, not sustained conventional burns. At this rate, we'll run dry before reaching the outer evacuation zones. What about the supply stations? Kairos demanded. Sir, Station Gamma 7 is already in the Maelstrom's disruption field. Station Beta 5 reports their fuel reserves are contaminated, apparently. The spatial distortions are affecting their storage systems. Kairos closed his eyes. The Dominion's logistics network. optimized for instant transport, was proving catastrophically inadequate for sustained operations. Fuel stations positioned for quantum tunnel ships had never needed to store massive reserves because vessels could always jump to the nearest supply point. Now, with ships forced to travel vast distances conventionally, the entire system was breaking down. "Sir," another voice called out Captain Vorak from the logistics cores. "The Prosperity and Abundance have both reported critical system failures. Their engines aren't designed for prolonged conventional operation. We're losing ships faster than we're completing evacuations. The Phantom-class interceptors, the pride of the Dominion fleet, were suffering the worst. Built for speed and maneuverability. Through quantum tunnels, their sleek hulls housed engines that could generate incredible power for short bursts. But sustained conventional flight was causing them to overheat, break down, and in 3 cases, suffer complete engine failures that left them drifting helplessly in space. How is this possible?" Kairos muttered, staring at a fleet status board that showed red warning indicators across 2/3 of his ships. "These are the most advanced vessels in the galaxy." Commander Nethys cleared her throat nervously. "Sir, according to engineering, our ships were optimized for quantum tunnel operations. The power systems, fuel capacity, even the navigation computers were designed around the assumption that long-distance conventional travel would never be necessary." The irony was devastating. The Dominion's technological superiority had become their weakness. Their ships were like Formula One race cars trying to drive cross-country incredibly fast under perfect conditions, but helpless when forced to operate outside their design parameters. Meanwhile, reports from civilian evacuations painted an even grimmer picture. Nexus Station reports 60,000 civilians still awaiting transport, came another update. The Radiance was supposed to evacuate them, but she suffered engine failure and is requesting emergency assistance. The research facility at Cygnus Prime is reporting that our evacuation ships can't land. The planet's gravity is interfering with their anti-grav systems, and they lack conventional landing capabilities. "Admiral," Captain Mexler from the engineering corps is called in. "We've lost contact with the Magnificent. Last transmission indicated complete power failure during an extended burn. They were carrying 15,000 evacuees. Each failure revealed another flaw in the Dominion's tunnel-dependent infrastructure. Their ships couldn't land on planets without perfect conditions. Their engines couldn't handle extended operations. Their navigation systems were calibrated for quantum tunnel exits, not conventional space travel. Their crews, trained for precision tunnel jumps, were making basic mistakes in fuel management and course plotting. The evacuation was becoming a rout. Then, 16 hours into the crisis, a transmission came through that silenced the entire command. "Center, Nexus Throne Fleet Command. This is Captain Maya Chun aboard the Drifter. We are currently docking with Kepler-7 Research Station." Admiral Kairos stared at the communication panel. "Repeat that, Captain Chun. We've arrived at Kepler-7, Admiral. Beginning evacuation of critical personnel and data archives. Current time, 16 hours, 43 minutes since departure." The command center erupted in confused voices. Commander Nethys quickly pulled up the navigation logs. "Sir, that's impossible. According to our calculations, the Drifter should still be 11 hours out from Kepler-7. Maybe their navigation is wrong," suggested a tactical officer. "Verify their position," Kairos ordered. The sensor readings came back confirmed. The Drifter was indeed at Kepler-7, somehow having covered the distance in nearly 20 hours. Less time than the Dominion's own ships could manage. "How?" Kairos whispered Dot as if hearing his question. Maya's voice came through the com again. "Admiral, we're going to need approximately 6 hours to complete the evacuation. We can take the 3,000 researchers plus approximately 40 tons of critical data storage. Will you have a ship available to rendezvous with us at the Theta relay point?" Captain Chun, Kairos found his voice. How did you reach Kepler-7 so quickly? Our sensors show you maintaining a constant velocity that shouldn't have been sufficient. There was a pause. Then Maya's calm reply. Admiral, we didn't travel in a straight line. Explain. Your ships are designed to jump from point to point through quantum tunnels. In normal space, you follow the same straight line thinking. But space isn't empty, Admiral. It's full of gravity wells, solar winds, and magnetic fields. If you know how to read them, you can use them. The silence on the command bridge was deafening. We used the gravitational assist from the binary system at Sector 7, rode the solar wind currents from the pulsar at Epsilon, and threaded the needle through the asteroid field at Delta Junction. Your ships can't do that because they're too big, too rigid, and your crews don't know how to navigate in 3 dimensions without tunnel markers. Commander Nethys was frantically checking the route on her navigation computer. Sir, she said quietly, the path she describes, it's incredibly dangerous. Threading between those gravity wells requires constant course corrections and perfect timing. One mistake and the ship would be torn apart. But it would work? Kairos asked. Theoretically, yes. It would reduce travel time by 60%. But no Dominion ship could attempt it. Our vessels are too large to maneuver through those fields, and our crews don't have the experience for that kind of precision flying. As Maya's transmission continued, describing her progress with the evacuation, the magnitude of the Dominion's predicament became clear. They had built the fastest ships in the galaxy, but only for traveling in perfectly controlled conditions. When faced with the messy reality of actual space travel, their technological marvels were helpless. Meanwhile, a single human freighter built, with spare parts and operated by a crew of 5, was accomplishing what entire Dominion squadrons couldn't manage. Admiral, Maya's voice cut through the stunned silence. I have a proposal. There are 46 other human ships in your territory. We can establish an evacuation network that doesn't depend on quantum tunnels. But we're going to need your authorization and cooperation. Kairos looked around his command center, filled with officers who had spent their careers believing in Dominion superiority. The same officers who had laughed at the human freighter just weeks ago. What do you need? Captain Chun? He asked quietly. Trust, Admiral, and the willingness to let the primitive humans show you how to move through space when your technology can't. The most advanced fleet in galactic history was about to ask for help from the ships they had dismissed as barely spaceworthy. And somehow, Admiral Kairos realized, the humans had been ready for this moment all along. What happened over the next 36 hours would be remembered as the Great Evacuation, the day the galaxy's mightiest empire learned to move through space all over again. Maya's voice filled the emergency command frequency as she coordinated what no one had thought possible. A complete evacuation network run by the ships everyone had dismissed as obsolete. Aurora, this is Drifter. Take the southern route through the Helix Nebula. Use the magnetic field lines to boost your velocity. You should reach Proxima Colony 12 hours ahead of schedule. Wanderer, adjust your approach vector by 15 degrees. There's a gravity wave from the neutron star that'll give you a slingshot boost around Sector 9. Pioneer, you're burning too much fuel on that approach. Drop to minimum power and let the solar winds from the K-class star carry you through the next leg. Admiral Kairos listened in amazement as human captains coordinated movements through space with a precision and efficiency that his own fleet commanders had never achieved. They weren't just traveling from point A to point B, they were dancing through space, using every natural phenomenon as an advantage. How are they doing this? Commander Nethys whispered, watching the tactical display as human ships consistently arrived at their destinations hours ahead of even the most optimistic projections. The answer came from an unexpected source, Captain Torres, Maya's engineer, during a brief communication to update fleet status. Commander, respectfully, your people have been traveling through space for 2,000 years, but you've never actually learned how space works. You jump over it, around it, through it, but you don't work with it. Explain, Kairos interjected. Torres's gravelly voice filled the cum. Admiral, space isn't empty. It's an ocean of forces, currents, and fields. Gravity wells, magnetic streams, solar winds, dark matter flows. It's all there if you know how to read it. Human ships were built to surf those currents because we never had a choice. The evidence was undeniable. As evacuation reports flooded in, a pattern emerged that shattered every assumption the Dominion had held about space travel. The drifter had evacuated Kepler-7 in record time. The Aurora had reached the mining colonies at Proxima using half the expected fuel. The Wanderer had navigated through the asteroid field at Delta Junction in a fraction of the time it would have taken any Dominion vessel. Most impressive of all, the Pioneer, a ship even more battered than Maya's, had successfully evacuated the entire population of Research Station Omega by using what its captain called gravitational tide riding. The technique involved timing approach vectors to coincide with the orbital mechanics of 3 different moons, creating a slingshot effect that tripled the ship's effective speed. "This is impossible," Captain Thesis from Phoenix Squadron transmitted during his own failed evacuation attempt. "My ships are 10 times more powerful than theirs. How are they outperforming us?" Maya's response was calm and patient. "Captain, your ships are designed to overpower space. Ours are designed to work with it. When you can't use brute force, technique matters more than technology." The breakthrough moment came when Maya proposed something that made every Dominion officer's blood run cold: a joint evacuation of Nexus Theta, the most challenging target on the list. Nexus Theta was a research station located in a gravity maze region where 3 massive stars created overlapping gravitational fields that made navigation nightmarishly complex. It housed 50,000 civilians and contained irreplaceable scientific data. The Dominion's best ships had pronounced it unreachable. The gravitational stresses would tear apart any vessel attempting to navigate the maze conventionally. "I'll lead a convoy of 12 human ships through the maze," Maya announced. "We can evacuate the entire station in one operation." "Captain Chun," Admiral Kairos said, his voice heavy with concern, "our computer models show that the gravitational stresses in that region would destroy any ship attempting passage. Even our most heavily shielded vessels couldn't survive." "Admiral, your computer models assume ships fighting against the gravitational fields. We're going to work with them." What followed was the most audacious display of space navigation in recorded history. Maya led her convoy of human freighters into the gravity maze, but instead of powering through the conflicting fields, they used them. Each ship adjusted its course in real time, reading the gravitational currents like ancient mariners reading ocean tides. They spiraled between gravity wells, used tidal forces for acceleration, and performed maneuvers that looked like an elaborate dance, choreographed by the cosmos itself. The Dominion fleet watched in stunned silence as 12 primitive human ships threaded through a maze that had defeated the galaxy's most advanced vessels. Not only did they reach Nexus Theta safely, they did it faster than anyone had thought possible. "Nexus Theta, this is Captain Chen. We're beginning evacuation operations. All 50,000 civilians will be transferred within 8 hours. The evacuation of Nexus Theta became a masterclass in human space navigation. Ships that looked like they were held together with prayer and spare parts performed maneuvers that redefined what was possible in conventional space travel. They worked in perfect coordination, each captain reading space like a 3-dimensional map of invisible forces. When the last human ship emerged from the gravity maze with its cargo of evacuees, the communication channels fell silent. Then, slowly, something unprecedented happened. The Dominion fleet began to transmit congratulations. "Captain Chun, Admiral Karos's voice was heavy with emotion. On behalf of the Valdris Dominion, I formally request that Earth assume coordination of all remaining evacuation operations. Maya's response was characteristically modest. Admiral, we're honored to help. But I'd suggest this is an opportunity for your people to learn something new. We'll be happy to teach your crews how to read space the way we do. Over the following days, as the crisis passed and the maelstrom stabilized, something extraordinary happened. Dominion officers began training aboard human ships, learning techniques that their ancestors had abandoned in favor of quantum tunnel technology. They discovered that space was not an obstacle to overcome, but a medium to understand and work with. The final evacuation statist told the story. Human ships had rescued over 2 million civilians using techniques that required no advanced technology, just skill, experience, and a deep understanding of how space actually worked. 6 months later, the Valdris Dominion formally established the Human Navigation Corps as a permanent division of their fleet. Maya Chen was appointed as Admiral of Conventional Operations, a position created specifically to teach the galaxy's most advanced civilization how to travel through space the way their ancestors had before they forgot that wisdom in favor of technological shortcuts. In his final report on the crisis, Admiral Karos wrote, "We spent 2 millennia building ships that could ignore the laws of physics. It took a species we dismissed as primitive to remind us that sometimes the best way forward is to work with those laws, not around them." The Dominion never again dismissed Earth's ships as inadequate. They had learned, at nearly catastrophic cost, that there was a difference between being fast and being effective, and that sometimes the most powerful technology was no technology at all, just the accumulated wisdom of people who had spent generations learning to move through the universe with skill instead of brute force. Maya Chen still captains the Drifter. Now officially designated as the flagship of the Human Navigation Corps. When asked about her role in changing galactic civilization, she typically shrugs and says, "We just showed them that space is an ocean, not an obstacle." Sometimes the best way to get somewhere isn't to punch a hole through reality, it's to learn how to swim. The Empire had ignored Earth until a single human freighter outran their entire fleet. In doing so, they learned that the fastest ship in the galaxy isn't always the one with the biggest engines. Sometimes it's the one with the best navigator. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.